This is Optoma's UHD60, a projector that comes with significant investment on your part, the consumer, a far cry from the $500 price point of good old-fashioned 1080p. While true that there are cheaper 4K options like the PX747 from ViewSonic or the BenQ TK800, whichever tickles your fancy, both taking a less of a hit when it comes to entering those credit card digits into the Amazon payment screen. So is the image produced by the UHD60 as something like the TK800 and its close counterparts, or is it just better, or is it so good it's like finding a unicorn? So recently there's been a trend afoot on the projector market with quite a few options by all the big players showing 4K projectors using pixel shift technology. One thing is becoming apparent with all manufacturers: affordability in the 4K options available to you guys is actually lowering in cost, and all of them are trying to come in or create a projector that seems to be around the £1,000 or thereabouts price point. This is all very good news for you guys. So what about the UHD60? Few things first. The UHD60 in several ways is considered one of the best sub £2,000 projectors on the market. It has one of the highest lumen ratings at 3000, highest contrast ratio at 1,000,000:1, and it also happens to be one of the quietest projectors in its class. In my testing it came in around 27 decibels. So at the time of filming this video, the UHD60 costs around £1,899, at least on Amazon UK, and the cheapest price that I've managed to find on the UK market is about £1,500 from some obscure eBay seller. So a quick look at the projector physically and the overall build quality. Now there's no denying it, it's a big projector, as you may be able to tell. Also it weighs quite a bit, coming in a little under 10 kilos out of the box. The lens on the projector is mounted in the centre, unlike the TK800 and the PX747. I personally prefer having it mounted in the centre. I find it slightly less of a headache aligning the image. Aside from the front IR sensor, nothing much else to talk about here. On the left side there's just a big cutout for venting and heat dissipation, but on the right side you have a selection of buttons, usually what you would expect to find on the top of a projector. Here it's integrated nicely onto the side, so kudos to Optoma for their implementation. I like it a lot. 2 rows of 3 very narrow rectangular buttons, followed by 2 larger buttons and 2 indicator LEDs as well. Coming round to the rear we find 1x HDMI 1.4a, 1x HDMI 2.0 with HDCP 2.2, connectivity basically ensuring that you're compatible with 4K devices like your Blu-ray player. We also have a little legacy in the way of a VGA in, audio input and output via 3.5mm port. We have an optical input, a USB 2.0 port, and a USB Type A for power, i.e. to power your Fire Stick or your Chromecast, an RJ45 input, and you also get an RS232C, and if you're wondering what that's used for, is to connect a DTE device like your computer to a modem. And finally we also have a 12-volt trigger, so a pretty comprehensive selection of ports, what you would normally expect on a projector of this price point. Coming back around to the top of the projector, you're going to see a split in the panel. Push on the centre of the panel to unlock it, and then you'll expose the focus wheel and the tilt shift dial. I do like how it's hidden, it looks quite minimalistic in the design. The panel itself though, however, is pretty cheaply made, but it's functional, and realistically, how often are you really going to be accessing it? Also on the side we can see the lamp replacement cover. Build quality wise, I'm not overly impressed. So moving on to the more important stuff, starting with the claimed 3000 ANSI lumens, it did really well. Honestly, it was actually putting out close to the claimed rating, especially in bright mode. That said, the bright mode does seem to have a slightly stronger than average green bias, so be prepared for some adjustments if you want to actually use this projector in the daytime in bright mode. As with any Optima projector that has the brilliant colour feature, I set mine pretty high, usually to an 8 or a 9, just in case you're wondering. Point to note though, in a completely dark theatre room, you might want to actually rein it in a bit, maybe a 6 to a 7, which should give you an overall boost in contrast and saturation, but a lot of people will pretty much stick to the brilliant setting at 10 and forget about it. Let's face it, it puts out the most amount of lumens. With Optima's HD27 and the HD29 Derby, which we tested recently, the out-the-box settings were pretty good. I can't say that with this one. You have to tweak it a fair bit, but once you do, you're going to get one gorgeous image, and if you you've invested in a good quality screen, say like something like an ALR screen from Elite Screens, you're going to be in for a real treat. The UHD60 also supports HDR10, which is always a good thing. And for those of you that don't know what HDR10 is, it's basically the HDR standard. We don't have any support for some fancy hybrid log gamma or Dolby Vision HDR format, so that's not really to be expected again at this price point. The UHD60 can also convert SDR content to HDR, and I must admit it does a pretty good job. There's no jittery movements in the image while it's actually processing non-HDR content. The image wasn't overly manipulated and colours weren't processed to look overly harsh. Uniformity comes in at 85% and will drop a little at the widest lens angle, and the picture on the edge of the screen can look ever so slightly faded, but that's not really a big deal, as most of the times your eyes are going to be always focused on the centre of the image. This can be said for pretty much most projectors that I've tested all year. Image sharpness is fantastic. You don't seem to lose any fine detail even in complex scenes. There is little softening on the edges, but nothing that most people will even ever notice. So moving on to the black level, the simple answer here is yes, it could be better. It's not bad, it's not poor, it's not horrendous in any way, shape or form. It just could be a little bit better in my opinion for a projector around the 1800 to 2K mark. To get the best out, just make sure you have dynamic black turned on, especially if you're watching movies, and if you turn on DB while you're actually gaming, your input lag will drop to about 51 milliseconds, good enough for a casual gamer. In terms of throw, to say get 120-inch screen, you're going to need about 12 feet of space. For those of you that don't understand feet, it's about 3.6 meters. With the 1.6x zoom lens, you can get the same 120-inch screen from about 19 feet back too, so you can actually arrange your seating placement if you've got a larger environment as well. In terms of lamp life, the UHD60 will run for 4,000 hours in bright mode, about 10,000 hours in eco mode, and 15,000 hours in dynamic black mode, which was pretty much my favourite mode, and I left it in dynamic black mode for most of my testing. The lamp replacement cost on this is around $170 to $190, so not the cheapest, but it's not too expensive either when you consider you're paying about £1,800 for a projector that might last you for a good about 2 years, 3 years, depending on what your usage is. Optoma also throw in a free 2-year warranty on this model as well. So to sum up, the UHD60 is a projector that delivers on multiple fronts: great image quality, great colour and contrast. The HDR implementation is not overdone, it looks very natural, and the lack of fan noise is absolutely wonderful. And lastly, it's even got that lens shift dial to ease the pain of setup. So that about wraps it up for this video. So if you've got any questions, you know what to do. If you like the video, then please support the channel and leave a like, and maybe go ahead and subscribe. If you've got any projector related question or need a bit of advice, then obviously leave the comment in the comment section, or you can find me on Facebook or stalk me on Instagram. I'll have it all linked in the video description. Always happy to help. I'll catch you on the next one.